This guy used to be a top-tier assassin, but after getting stung by what he thought was just a bee, he woke up looking like a middle schooler. The organization immediately sent someone to analyze his condition and discovered that what stung him wasn't an ordinary bee, it was some kind of bioengineered weapon. They're still tracking down who created it, but fortunately, aside from his body shrinking, everything else seems fine. The problem is, how's a legendary hitman supposed to work when he's stuck in a kid's body? As luck would have it, though, his boss had the perfect assignment for Leo's new situation. He needed to send his daughter to a middle school and wanted Leo to scope it out first. Leo wasn't exactly thrilled about taking on such a low-level job, but when his ex-wife Emma mentioned the pay was incredibly generous, he immediately agreed. Before he started school, one of his guys gave him a special pair of glasses equipped with a camera and walkie-talkie. After all, he's still a grown man on the inside, and they were worried he might not blend in. Leo didn't refuse because he genuinely struggles with social interaction, which is partly why his ex-wife Luna divorced him in the first place. Now they only talk when work requires it. Emma is the research director at his organization. On the first day of the new semester, self-introductions were inevitable. Everyone else's went normally, but when it was Leo's turn, he just stated his name and turned to walk away. After his teammate reminded him of the issue, he realized his mistake and reluctantly went back up to say a bit more. After thinking for a moment, he said his hobby was sniping weight. Though he quickly corrected himself to say he meant in video games. Two girls in class had already labeled him as a creepy loner. Leo couldn't care less, but they wouldn't let it go. Leo ignored their mockery. Just like that, Leo became an outsider in class. Though he did manage to fit into the school, he'd initially treated school as just playing around. But after a few classes, he realized something he actually loved learning. He dropped out in elementary school, so this was his chance to experience the middle school years he'd missed. After school one day, Leo suddenly heard a commotion. Some pervert wearing a panda mask had knocked out the security guard and gotten into the school. The two girls who'd mocked Leo earlier weren't running away, they were taking pictures. But when they realized the man was heading their way, it was too late to escape. Frozen in fear, all they could do was threaten him by saying the police would catch him. The panda guy wasn't fazed at all, he was confident he could get away. Leo witnessed the whole thing and couldn't just stand by. To avoid blowing his cover, he threw a box of chalk and shot it to create a smokescreen. Then he rushed forward and landed a punch to the man's gut. The guy just foamed at the mouth but didn't go down. Leo immediately realized his strength had weakened along with his body. At that moment, the pervert pulled out a bomb. Leo quickly kicked him in a vulnerable spot, then knocked the bomb into the air. Now he could use his handgun to shoot it and detonate it mid-air. But because he'd miscalculated how long the fight would take, the smoke had cleared by the time the two girls saw Leo. They called out his name uncertainly. Leo claimed that some stranger had taken down the pervert and he'd just happened to pass by. Even though he said that, the two girls were convinced Leo had saved them. So the next day, when the whole class was isolating Leo, the two of them approached him with shy expressions and invited him to join the class group chat. Leo agreed indifferently, but immediately regretted it. These middle schoolers had way too much energy. The constant barrage of message notifications was like a nuclear level. Information assault for this middle-aged guy who barely knew how to use a smartphone and had no idea how to mute notifications. The boy was herding his sheep, when suddenly, his dog George sensed something off and let out a low growl. George then quickly crawled under the boy's feet, trembling with fear. Jack found this behavior odd, but when he turned around, he was shocked to see a ferocious bear approaching from behind. The bear roared furiously at Jack, freezing him in fear. As the bear drew closer, Jack's life was in real danger. Suddenly, a golden Tibetan Mastiff dashed in from nowhere, leaping straight at the bear and pinning it to the ground. The fierce battle ended quickly, and the bear fled in defeat. But the golden Mastiff wasn't Jack's dog. It gave Jack a brief look, then walked away without a word. Just as Jack was about to breathe a sigh of relief, a pack of wolves appeared, chasing after his sheep. The wolves soon caught a few sheep. To stop them, Jack picked up a large rock and threw it at the wolves. This only enraged them. One wolf bared its fangs and lunged. Jack had no choice but to run, but in his panic, he tripped and fell. Just then, a group of Tibetan Mastiffs from the nearby village charged in. They fought off the wolves and drove them away. Then, as one, they turned toward a slope and began to howl. Atop the slope stood the same golden Mastiff from earlier. It was about to challenge the king of the Mastiffs. The Mastiff king first sent a subordinate to test him. Then, a female Mastiff walked out. The golden Mastiff avoided fighting her, but out of nowhere, she lunged, and the two of them tumbled off the cliff together. Jack ran to their side, and quickly called for help. They carried the two injured Mastiffs back to camp. Jack's father, a well-known local doctor, immediately began surgery to save them. The operation lasted into the night. To prevent the golden Mastiff's condition from worsening, Jack stayed by its side all night. Matthew's most epic episode yet. The two strongest wizards in the magical world are about to duke it out. Wolpak actually pulled out third-tier magic. Sky God's Descent. Just moments ago, Wolpak took down Pure Origin's lieutenant. Now these two are about to go at it. Pure Origin strikes first. His signature magic is Time Freeze. To dodge this attack, Wolpak tears apart the space around him, then teleports right behind Pure Origin. Finding his blind spot, Wolpak immediately casts Spatial Severance. But it's pretty much useless, because Pure Origin can control time. Next he hits him with Time Reshape, targeting Wolfpack's arm. As the spell takes effect, half of Wolfpack's body withers away. What's shocking is that Pure Origin can use such powerful time stop magic this frequently. He's gotten this strong already. In that case, Wolfpack makes up his mind. He's gonna slice up everything nearby. Magic, Spatial Severance Slash. To give him no opening, Wolfpack uses a combo to shred this entire area, including the time stop magic zone. But just as Wolfpack's gasping for air, he hears that terrifying voice again. Pure Origin is completely unharmed. Turns out before Wolfpack started slicing, he'd already frozen time. All that was for nothing. Time reshaped. Getting hit again. Wolfpack loses an arm. The power gap between them is just too huge. But Wolfpack will never give up. As a kid, he was sickly. His grades sucked and he was really timid. He had no place at school. Obviously made no friends either. Even without any real reason, he ended up dropping out, afraid of rejection. He cut himself off from others first. Over time, he grew to hate the world. Until teacher Adam showed up. No matter how many times he was rejected, the teacher kept trying to connect. His words, "I can't just abandon you," saved Wolfpack. Pure Origin. Living only for yourself like that is fine. But I survived because of others' kindness. I can't just ignore those weaker than me. With that said, Wolfpack's about to use his ultimate move. Ever since the man realized the maid beside him was actually a human in disguise, he started acting extremely careful. He used to think the maid was just a robot with no emotions, so he never worried about hugging or kissing her. But now he didn't dare do any of that. At the same time, he couldn't let anyone know he had figured out Mary was human, because if the butler found out, Mary would be taken away. So for the entire day, Kevin kept avoiding Mary. When Mary brought him snacks and tried to feed him, Kevin quickly dodged her and told her to go take care of something else. But right then, a dagger suddenly flew toward Kevin. Luckily, Mary caught it just in time and pulled him into her arms. Kevin was instantly entranced by her. Mary then tried to carry him back to his room, but Kevin was afraid he would lose control, so he hurriedly told her to put him down. Mary had no idea why Kevin was acting so strange today. She thought she had done something wrong and apologized. Kevin quickly explained it was his own issue. To stop Mary from overthinking, Kevin took Annie to the amusement park for an inspection. Annie came along this time too. As soon as she showed up, she happily said she was Kevin's fiancée. Mary was shocked when she heard that. Kevin was afraid she'd misunderstand, so he immediately denied it and said Annie's fiancé was Maynard. Right then, Annie suddenly leaned in close to Mary. The butler introduced Mary as one of the company's robots, but Annie could tell right away she was human. Afraid the truth would slip out, Kevin quickly dragged everyone off to change into the Halloween costumes. Seeing how much Kevin cared about Mary, Annie deliberately complained that her dress was too big and asked Mary to help find the roller coaster route. Mary panicked, but just then, a piece of paper appeared at her feet. She opened it and saw it was a map. After that, maid number 2 became part of the attractions, carrying kids around to give them a flying to heaven experience. Meanwhile, Kevin and Mary accompanied Annie around the park. Kevin worried Mary was getting tired, so he suggested they take a break. Then he said he needed to go to the restroom. With only Annie and Mary left, Annie told Mary she knew she was human and used that to threaten her into helping Annie chase Kevin. Mary had no choice but to agree. After that, she kept creating opportunities for Annie. Kevin was completely confused about what was going on. Watching Annie getting close to Kevin made Mary feel awful inside, but she knew she wasn't worthy of being with him anyway. Then suddenly, Annie got upset and ran off. Kevin just couldn't take her clinginess anymore and told her straight up that he hated people who act spoiled. Mary panicked the moment she heard that. Watching Annie walk away, she worried Annie would reveal her secret, so she immediately chased after her. Mary followed Annie into a restricted area. On the way, Annie almost fell, but Mary caught her just in time. Annie was truly grateful. She was about to apologize for threatening Mary earlier when the ground beneath them suddenly collapsed, and both of them fell off a cliff. At the critical moment, maid number 2 rescued them. Once they were safely on the ground, Kevin directly exposed Annie's lie about liking him. He said the person Annie actually liked was Maynard. Then he asked why she had been trying to get close to him. Annie admitted it. She said she used to be so spoiled when she was young that no one liked her, and only Maynard was willing to play with her. But later Kevin took Maynard's position as successor, and from then on Maynard started ignoring her. So to get Maynard's attention, Annie tried to approach Kevin. After explaining everything, Annie apologized to Kevin. Kevin didn't blame her anymore, and Annie gave up on her plan to pursue him. As for Mary's secret, she said she would keep it for them.
Las bolas de pintura llegaron a un parque de diversiones cuya pintura aún no se había secado y empezaron a jugar. Lo peor fue que, mientras jugaban en la ruleta, volcaron un balde de pintura. En ese momento, las bolas de peluche regresaron y vieron el parque hecho un desastre. Se enojaron muchísimo y fueron a preguntar a las bolas de pintura cómo pensaban resolverlo. Pero la ruleta ya estaba manchada de pintura, y el problema parecía irreparable. De pronto, a una bola de peluche se le ocurrió una idea. Pidió a las bolas de pintura que hicieran girar la ruleta a toda velocidad y luego vertió pintura fresca sobre ella. Con la rotación, en la superficie aparecieron unos patrones muy extraños. Todos quedaron maravillados ante la escena y pronto se unieron a la creación. Las bolas de pintura fueron escupiendo distintos colores uno tras otro, y al final la ruleta se transformó en un diseño de camuflaje. Todos juntos tomaron una foto para recordar el momento. Como aún tenían ganas de seguir, se dirigieron a un parque de diversiones viejo, con la intención de repintarlo por completo, pero la pintura se había acabado. Rápidamente pidieron a las bolas de pintura que rellenaran con pintura nueva, y enseguida pintaron de nuevo el tobogán. Después llegaron al sube y baja para colorearlo, pero entonces una bola de peluche se dio cuenta de un problema. No tenían pintura verde. Al ver que estaba confundido, las bolas de pintura se le acercaron con una idea. Le hicieron señas para que mezclara el amarillo con el azul. Sin embargo, la bola de peluche no estuvo de acuerdo. Entonces, las bolas de pintura mezclaron directamente el azul con el amarillo. La bola de peluche se enojó muchísimo, pero pronto descubrió que la mezcla se había convertido en verde. Contento, pintó rápidamente inmediatamente con el nuevo color, y pidió a las bolas de pintura que mezclaran más tonos. Con blanco lograron gamas claras, con rojo y amarillo un naranja brillante, y con azul y rojo un púrpura intenso. Gracias a esos nuevos colores tan hermosos, pintaron el viejo parque de diversiones hasta dejarlo reluciente, y comenzaron a planear su reapertura. Una mujer que estaba a punto de casarse jugaba por última vez con su oso de peluche, pero justo cuando estaba a punto de entrar a la iglesia, el oso cobró vida, apareció a su lado y se la llevó. La mujer intentó escapar, pero el oso la subió a un coche y se marcharon. Ella estaba muy enfadada e intentó liberarse, pero en ese momento perdieron el control y chocaron contra un camión de dulces. Por suerte, ambos salieron ilesos. Al ver incontables caramelos cayendo del cielo, la mujer recordó su infancia junto al oso. Entonces lo perdonó y le ayudó a volver a colocar su ojo que se había caído. Intentaron regresar a la iglesia, pero sin darse cuenta comenzaron a divertirse por el camino. Saltaron un acantilado, se deslizaron por el césped y finalmente cayeron en un mar de flores bajo el agua. El oso comió una flor y, al instante, los pétalos se transformaron en mariposas que salieron volando de su boca. Viajaron por ese mundo mágico donde parecía que todo podía ocurrir, pero cuando llegaron al fondo del agua, el coche de bodas apareció para llevarse a la mujer. El oso logró rescatarla a tiempo. Luego llegaron a un universo lleno de estrellas flotantes y aterrizaron en un planeta. Después aparecieron en una enorme piscina de pelotas en el espacio. De repente, la mujer se dio cuenta de que el oso había desaparecido y comenzó a caer sin control, hasta hundirse en una oscuridad infinita. Cuando despertó, descubrió que había vuelto a la iglesia. Entonces comprendió que en realidad era su miedo al matrimonio lo que la estaba abrumando. En ese momento, el oso apareció de nuevo, se convirtió en un gigante y salvó a la mujer. La llevó hasta la cima de la iglesia, la colocó a salvo y hasta despejó los helicópteros del cielo. Parecía que mientras el oso estuviera allí, la mujer no tendría que preocuparse por nada. Pero entonces apareció también el coche de bodas sin conductor. La mujer intentó despedirse del oso, pero este fue alcanzado por un tanque y resultó herido, cayendo desde lo alto. En ese instante, la mujer despertó de repente. Descubrió que su oso de peluche estaba acostado junto a la cama. Todo parecía tan real, pero ella ya no quiso seguir cuestionando si había sido un sueño o no, porque finalmente comprendió que había llegado el momento de despedirse de su infancia y prepararse para comenzar una nueva etapa de su vida.
Do you know what Black Templars fear the most? For a Black Templar, dying in battle is simply returning to the Emperor's embrace. But something far more terrifying than death is being captured by a pack of furries whose licking alone makes a Black Templar feel sick to his stomach. The furries even go as far as to harass the Black Templar, and the furry leader promises him that if he can secure a victory in the arena, he will win back his freedom. At that moment, a massive crowd of furries eagerly awaits the upcoming duel, and while the enemy appears to have no combat ability, the Black Templar is stripped of his armor and forced into the arena with nothing but a sword. He thinks this will be a one-sided slaughter, but the furries suddenly begin to transform. Where there are furries, fighting is secondary, and being a pervert is their main game. It is only when the furries reveal their tentacles that the Black Templar realizes something is wrong. Faced with so many tentacles, his psychological defenses instantly collapse, but the gates are locked. The furries use their tentacles to entangle the Black Templar and drag him to the ground, binding all four of his limbs. Luckily, his years of combat experience allow him to find a way out of this desperate situation, and he slices through all the tentacles. However, 2 more tentacles grow back from every wound. Because there are too many tentacles, the Black Templar dares not attack recklessly. At this point, the furry leader speaks from the high platform, saying that if the Black Templar admits right then and there that furries are the best and that everyone should join the furry family, he will be spared from the coming pain, since no one can face tentacles that constantly regenerate. But for a Black Templar, giving a dishonest compliment to furries just to save his body and dignity is far worse than dying on the spot in battle. The bunny girl noticed something strange. She could take down a level 10 adventurer in a single blow. Yet, somehow, Jack, who was only level 1, stood there completely unharmed. What she didn't know was that while Jack's level was technically low, his health had already reached the absolute maximum. When he first arrived in this world, all his stats were at rock bottom, but the gods had granted him one thing: maxed out luck. Other adventurers would defeat slimes and maybe get a handful of bean sprouts. Jack, on the other hand, he'd walk away with an entire harvest. There was even a legendary dungeon in this world with a ridiculously low drop rate. Top-tier adventurers had slaughtered thousands of skeleton monsters inside, only to walk away empty-handed. Eventually, people believed the dungeon didn't drop anything at all, but when Jack casually defeated just one skeleton, a seed dropped, and this wasn't just any seed. It permanently increased his max HP. Realizing the potential, Jack went on a farming spree, grinding skeletons until his health was maxed out. Later, Jack went hunting for food. He collected so much that, among the drops, there was a single carrot. Before he could even react, the bunny girl snatched it up in an instant. After tasting Jack's carrot, she refused to eat anything else. The bunny girl was a legend among adventurers, so when others saw Jack handing her a carrot, they were completely stunned. The receptionist, witnessing the whole scene, immediately approached him. Upon learning that the bunny girl was obsessed with Jack's carrots, everyone was in disbelief. The receptionist didn't hesitate. She offered to buy them at double the price. After all, the bunny girl wasn't just famous. She was an elite adventurer with unmatched talent. She also had a rather terrifying nickname, the Killer Rabbit. Rumor had it that someone once fed her a disgusting carrot, and she beat them to death. At first, everyone thought Jack's carrots were just big, but now, they realized, they were also of the highest quality. Without hesitation, the receptionist made an offer. They wanted to secure a long-term, high-priced deal for Jack's carrots.
Ranking all Johto Megas from worst to best. In 6th place, we start with Mega Steelix. Defensively, it's a monster, with a good defense, but it's so slow and has a mediocre attack that it almost never threatens anything. It only holds on for a few turns and then falls. In 5th place, Mega Ampharos. It gained the Dragon type, a Super Saiyan 3 look, and a great special attack, but its low speed and complicated weaknesses hinder it too much. It's more useful on very specific teams. 4th place goes to Mega Heracross. It has a very high attack and abuses Skill Link with moves like Arm Thrust and Pin Missile, but its low speed and bug type make it too vulnerable. Mega Houndoom opens the top 3. In the sun, it turns into a missile with solar power. It deals absurd damage with Fire Blast and Dark Pulse, but outside of the right climate, it needs support to be lethal. Second place goes to Mega Scissor. Technician increases the damage of Bullet Punch, U-Turn, and Bug Bite. It has very few weaknesses and great defense. It can enter, hit hard with priority, and leave. Mega simple and efficient. The only reason it doesn't take first place is because it belongs to Mega Tyranitar. It gained even more defensive and offensive stats, becoming a tank with brute force. The Sandstorm increases its special defense. And with Dragon Dance, it wipes out entire teams. Do you agree with this ranking? What's your favorite Mega in Johto? Comment below, and follow us for more content like this.
The boy was thrown into a fire the moment he was born. His mother thought she could eat him. Then thunder split the sky. She realized what she had done, and ran out screaming. The rain put out the flames, but it turned him into something no one could call human. To survive in a time of famine, whenever a starving family could no longer move, he would raise his axe and push open the door. Moments later he would walk out covered in blood, chewing on something in his mouth. The next day, a child collapsed from exhaustion. The team leader poked him with a stick, decided he was beyond saving, and planned to dump him in a ravine. At that moment Ashura appeared, and lunged forward to eat the child. A tall man named Shichiro stopped him, and handed over his last rice ball, to distract him. To others, Ashura looked no different from a wild dog. The group continued dragging logs down the road. Ashura followed at a distance, like a vulture waiting. Ahead of them stood a group blocking the path. They were wealthy kids, led by a boy named Kotaro. He said servants did not belong on this road, and started throwing stones, even though Shichiro would lose his pay if the delivery failed. One stone struck Ashura in the forehead. Kotaro tried to mock him, but Ashura snapped, leapt onto him, and bit through his artery. Kotaro bled out on the spot. Kotaro's father Jiho rushed over, unable to believe his only son was killed. He shouted that Ashura would be torn apart. His men trampled through villagers' fields as they rode out. Ashura ran for his life. No matter how fierce he was still just a child, and could not defeat armed adults. Cornered at a cliff, he dodged again and again, until he slipped, and fell into the abyss. The villagers believed he was dead, but he survived. Like his name Ashura suggested, his body refused to give up. A girl named Wakasa found him by the river, and cauterized his wounds with heated iron. In the past he would have fought back, but Wakasa's scent reminded him of his mother's embrace. He stayed still and watched her. After that Wakasa brought him food each day, and taught him how to speak. Winter passed, and they grew close. Ashura liked to act spoiled and asked her to carry him. When he rested on her back, he could sleep. They watched sunsets together. He began to see her as his mother, and slowly regained a sense of humanity. He would guard her from the shadows. Over time, he noticed Wakasa meeting Shichiro in secret. Sometimes she left food at the door and rushed away, spending less time with him. It hurt him deeply. He believed Shichiro had taken her away. One stormy day, he saw Wakasa hurrying somewhere. He ran home, but she was not there. She was with Shichiro, planning to run away to Kyoto. Ashura burst in, and swung his axe, cutting Shichiro's arm.
俺は大丈夫だ。どうしてお母さん、人でなし。人でなし。
Wakasa shouted at him, calling him a beast, and now Ashura understood the word. He could not believe she saw him that way. As he struck the ground in anger, a flood swept through the village. Fields were destroyed. Famine returned. Wakasa's suffering began. Food ran out. Traffickers came for young women. People urged her father to sell her. Walking alone meant danger. Cannibalism returned. At first Shichiro brought food, but he was caught and beaten, and stopped coming. Wakasa begged neighbors, but no one shared. People fought over water. She grew thin. Even a lizard made her think of food. Ashura sought everything to bring her meat. He sneaked into the stable, and killed Jiho's prized horse. When Jiho heard, he was shocked that the demon child still lived. Wakasa's father asked again if she would sell herself. At least she would survive. Then Jiho made an announcement. Whoever brought Ashura's head would receive a year of rice. The villagers grabbed torches and climbed the mountain. Wakasa's father prepared to join them, but Ashura came first, carrying fresh horse meat. Wakasa stared at it. Then she threw it to the ground, believing he had killed a person again. She refused to eat human flesh. Ashura tried to explain it was horse meat. She did not believe him. He gave half to her father, who devoured it like an animal. Though he once said those who eat humans are worse than dogs, Ashura tried to feed Wakasa, crying as he pushed the meat toward her. He feared losing her. She was the only person he cared about, but she refused. She would not live with that guilt. Her father reported Ashura, and villagers surrounded him. He fought back, killed Jiho in the chaos, but the mob kept advancing, driving him onto a rope bridge. Under a red moon, flames spread from both ends, and Ashura fell once more into the darkness. This girl has a severe delusional disorder. She often imagines that Jack is interested in her. It turns out the girl's father is an adult manga artist. Under her father's influence, she thinks boys are all perverts, so whenever a boy gets close to her, she assumes they're after her body. That day the teacher asked her to deliver clothes to Jack in the infirmary, because he had confessed to her just yesterday. She wanted to use this chance to reject him. Just as she was about to speak, her father was actually standing by the window cheering her on. It turns out last night, he had already noticed Aohori's abnormal behavior. She had ruined the pudding she made herself. At that moment Jack realized something. The two of them panicked and quickly separated. Aohori continued what she was saying before being interrupted. Suddenly the clothes on her chest were lifted, but it wasn't done by her. Then there was only one possibility: her unreliable dad. Jack took the initiative to step closer to her. Just when she thought something might happen, he instead draped the clothes over her.
もっと自分のこと大切にしてこんなことされなくても俺どうせやります
Even though nothing happened, she still dreamed about Jack. The next day the way she looked at Jack had changed. To better show her charm, she changed into a more mature outfit. Jack stared in shock. At noon the two of them went to the rooftop to rest, but Jack fell asleep right away. At that moment Aohori had a bold idea. She wanted to test Jack's length.
別に変な気持ちで触るんじゃないから大きさを知りたいだけだから罪にはならないはずだからでもするのか袋があればあとメジャー今度にする今度でいつだこうやって逃げてるのかそうじゃないああもう触るの触らないのどっち
For girls were accidentally stranded on a deserted island, but there was no source of water at all, so Julie squeezed the fish she caught, draining out its moisture, then drank the bloody liquid. She warmly invited everyone to join, but of course they refused, since there was no bathroom on the island. They had to relieve themselves anywhere. The weather was too hot, causing one of the girls to suffer from heat stroke. She felt really sick, so Julie had to personally help cool her down. Everyone was stunned. Then the girl pulled an insect leg from her mouth. It turned out Julie had been feeding her bugs. That day Julie went out to search for food. Jenny fainted from exhaustion. Seeing this, Julie wrapped mud in her socks and squeezed out water for Jenny to drink. She thought Jenny would be angry, but surprisingly she didn't care at all. After drinking she realized the water came from Julie's socks. Later they discovered a strange plant, but wild food shouldn't be eaten recklessly. They decided to test if it was edible using a skin test. First they cut it open, then pressed the surface against the skin. If the skin turned red it meant it was poisonous. Julie quickly broke it apart, and Jenny volunteered to be the test subject. After testing, it proved the food was indeed poisonous and not edible. Jenny lay on the ground disappointed. Then a bug landed on her hand. Julie reached out and grabbed it, skillfully removed the head. And to her surprise, the scary-looking bug turned out to be delicious. This girl knelt on the ground and her master to hit her. As long as her master was unhappy, she would be used as a tool for the master's venting. Mia, being the master's doll in face, had to mirror her master's every action, no matter what her master did to her. She never resisted, and she never hated her master. In this house, all of the masters were faceless, black figures. However, Jenny's master, Lily, was different from Mia's. Anna considered Lily to be her friend. Lily had the freedom to do whatever she liked, and even if she forgot something important, she wouldn't be scolded. As Anna's doll, Lily was completely different from Anna. Anna was gentle and composed, while Lily was lively and cheerful, often laughing aloud. Lily didn't even understand Anna's thoughts. Recently, Lily had been busy working with John and others to investigate the spirits, which kept her from staying by Anna's side to learn. But on the day of the public appearance, dolls were required to be perfectly synchronized with their masters. Lily followed Anna into the venue, where the grandfather's doll kept an eye on each pair of masters and dolls. If any pair couldn't synchronize perfectly, he would move the master's statue to the last row. Because Lily often acted on her own, Anna's statue ended up in the last row. Lily was terrified and no longer dared to make any moves that were different from Anna's. But when Lily tasted something delicious, she wanted to scream in excitement. In order to avoid getting points deducted, Lily had to pinch herself hard. Anna noticed something was wrong with Lily and immediately exaggerated her actions, not wanting Lily to hurt herself. Lily was deeply moved and swore to help Anna pass the test. But when it came time for the dance test, Lily was afraid because she hadn't learned the dance from Anna. However, Anna used coal dust to bind Lily, and by controlling the coal dust, she could make Lily follow her movements. In the end, the grandfather's doll invited the masters out and intentionally separated them from their dolls. The dolls felt uneasy being apart from their masters. At that moment, Anna was suspended in a cage 1,000 meters high. Anna could only wait for Lily to come to her rescue. This was the final test, designed to test the doll's loyalty and intelligence. The man, in order to become the strongest assassin in history, did not hesitate to undergo body modifications, even installing sharp blades in his joints. He is one of the 5 death row inmates, the red-haired Doyle. At this moment, he disguises himself as a sexy policewoman and appears behind Oliva. Seeing this, Oliva just wants to fight back, but instead, his eyes are covered by scalding coffee. Doyle takes the opportunity to suddenly leap up, delivering an elbow blade straight to Oliva's vital point. But fortunately, Oliva reacts quickly, promptly creating distance between them. However, the blade hidden in Doyle's elbow joint still leaves a huge wound on Oliva's face. In Doyle's view, it's impossible for him to lose to Oliva, but faced with Doyle's provocation, Oliva isn't angry at all. Instead, he turns around and locks the door. For him, Doyle coming to him voluntarily just saves him unnecessary trouble. Now he can't wait to have a fight. Suddenly, Oliva tenses the muscles in his arm, but just as he's about to launch an attack on Doyle, he suddenly loses his balance, and then unexpectedly falls headfirst to the ground. Unexpectedly, Doyle had smeared poison on his elbow blade. Taking advantage of Oliva's inability to move, Doyle viciously kicks him in the face, immediately splattering blood everywhere. Oliva kneels on the ground, holding his bleeding cheek, but precisely because of this, he drains out all the poisoned blood. Seeing this, Doyle suddenly leaps up, and delivers another heavy punch to Oliva's face. The immense force directly makes him spit out blood and fall to the ground, unable to get up. But just as Doyle thinks the fight is over like this, Oliva suddenly grabs his ankle, lifting him straight up. Then, Oliva suddenly leaps into the air, and slams Doyle hard onto the ground, suffering such a heavy blow, he completely falls silent. Next, Oliva grabs Doyle by the collar, and lifts him up again. But unexpectedly, the opponent's collar is also filled with blades. Taking advantage of Oliva's momentary daze, Doyle directly stabs the dagger into his stomach. Oliva is completely shocked, never expecting his abdominal muscles, harder than steel, to be pierced by such a small dagger. But Doyle's attack doesn't stop there. With 3 more fierce whipping kicks, kicks, he drives the dagger even deeper. Now Oliva is truly in danger. At the same time, the police chief arrives at the door with Shibukawa, but the moment the two push open the door, there's only Oliva, holding the dagger, standing alone on the blood-covered floor. However, facing the police chief's interrogation, Oliva doesn't mention. This boy never expected that just as the girl he liked finally agreed to be his girlfriend, he would be shot multiple times and die. But this wasn't real death. With the rapid rise of relationship technology, many people had lost their jobs. Chefs had been replaced by robots, and some even married virtual partners. Jenny was the founder of AI robots. Jack was just a college student, a teenager full of strange dreams, and in those dreams, the girl was always his sister, Jenny. But the two weren't related by blood. 10 years ago, Jack's parents died in a car accident. Alone and helpless, he was adopted by his father's friend, which made him and Jenny siblings. Though they had lived together for 10 years, Jack never wanted to just be Jenny's brother. He had always been in love with her, and Jenny felt the same. As their 10th anniversary as siblings approached, Jenny wondered what gift to prepare for Jack. Her AI assistant suggested that no matter what she gave, Jack would love it. Just then, Jack came home. Jenny asked directly if there was anything special he wanted. Before he could answer, the AI butler delivered bad news. Jenny's robotics company had been banned by several countries. The robots had developed human-like thoughts, and governments refused to allow such beings to exist. Under heavy pressure, Jenny had no choice but to halt her research. Seeing her so dejected, Jack decided to cheer her up. The next day, he invited Jenny to the zoo for the weekend. She was thrilled, ran back to her room, barely able to contain her excitement. Then she realized the weekend was also their 10-year anniversary, and her gift for Jack wasn't ready yet. When the weekend came, Jack and Jenny went to the zoo as planned. Jenny's mood gradually lifted. At the theater, their hands brushed, and the atmosphere grew intimate. Later at dinner, Jack gave Jenny a robotic dog, a bionic creation he had designed based on her relationship technology. Then Jack confessed his feelings. He admitted he didn't want to be her little brother anymore. Jenny grew nervous, quickly changing the subject. Thinking she wasn't interested, Jack dropped it, feeling discouraged. But Jenny regretted it deeply. Before they went home, she gave Jack her prepared gift and used the moment to confess too. Jack worried she cared too much about their sibling bond, but Jenny, blushing, admitted she also didn't want them to stay as brother and sister. She had tried to treat him like family, but every time she faced Jack, she couldn't help liking him, so she forced herself to stay calm.
出会った時からずっとアキラは私の原動力なの。その弟だと思い込もうとしたんだけど、あんたは年々たくましくなってくし、顔合わせるたびにドキドキしちゃって、平静を装うの結構大変なんだから。父さん、好きだ。はい。
Hearing this, Jack was overjoyed. He confessed again, even saying he wanted to marry her. Though it was fast, Jenny didn't mind. They embraced, and at last became a couple. At home, both were still excited. They had finally confessed their true feelings. Their father didn't object either, since there was no blood relation. A year later, Jenny pushed forward despite opposition and held a public launch for her AI robots. But in the middle of her speech, a man stormed the stage, pointing a gun at her. He shouted angrily, accusing Jenny of betraying humanity by creating robots. Jenny froze, unsure how to react. As the man was about to shoot, Jack rushed forward to protect her. Even so, Jenny was injured. She begged Jack to escape. The police restrained the man, but he broke free and fired again at Jenny. Jack shielded her, taking the bullets himself. He collapsed in a pool of blood, eyes slowly closing. When he opened them again, he found himself in a world 200 years in the future, a world completely transformed. This woman had waited for her fiancé for many years, but before she could even meet him, she was infected and turned into a vampire. Her name was Jenny. She was once a highly popular actress in a theater, but during a rehearsal, an accident occurred. A huge prop fell on her, and she lost so much blood that she was on the brink of death. However, 4 hours later, all her injuries had healed. The country's special forces concluded that Jenny had been turned into a vampire. They imprisoned her in a deep-sea prison. John was sent to determine whether Jenny could be of use to humanity. If communication was impossible, he was ordered to report and have her executed. Jenny was stuck in the last moments of her life, constantly reciting lines from her play. When she and John, two strangers, locked eyes, they both felt an unusual familiarity. John observed Jenny while writing up his report, but when he tried to light a cigarette, Jenny made a disdainful expression. John reported everything to his superior, who ordered Jenny's execution. But when John saw the real name of the girl, he recognized her. This was his fiancée, whom he had never met before. What he didn't expect was that their first meeting would be under such circumstances, with Jenny now a vampire. John felt a deep sympathy for her and didn't want her to be executed like this. He decided to try again to communicate with her. However, Jenny was still lost in her theatrical world. But when she saw the name John wrote in front of her, she recognized him too. He was her fiancé, though she didn't reveal it to him immediately. After John left, Jenny carefully examined his signed letter, as if making her final decision. John then went to the place where the accident happened. At that moment, a blonde-haired boy suddenly appeared at the scene. He told John that before the accident, Jenny had been excitedly talking about how she couldn't wait to show her play to her lover. Upon hearing this, John quickly rushed to leave the theater, but his subordinates rushed in and handed him a report that Jenny had escaped. The soldiers' guns couldn't kill her, and all Jenny wanted was to escape the prison to see her lover once more. Anyone who's ever broken their leg knows, once you lose a leg, walking normally becomes incredibly difficult, let alone competing in boxing matches. Today Retsu showed up at a boxing gym and asked the owner to take him on as a student. After hearing Retsu's request, the gym owner was pretty helpless, since when does a cripple become a professional boxer? But Retsu was absolutely determined. Seeing this, the owner had no choice but to give Retsu a chance. He told Retsu to hit the punching bag with everything he had, but Retsu asked if there were any backups available, because he could blow up the bag with just one punch. Hearing Retsu's words, the owner found it hilarious, and said if Retsu could pull it off, he'd agree to be Retsu's boxing coach. Well then, Retsu decided to show them what he could do.
I'll give them a show.
Everyone there was absolutely stunned. They never expected Retsu's punch to pack such terrifying power. The gym owner was completely dumbfounded. How was he supposed to coach a fighter this strong? And just like that, Retsu successfully entered the boxing world. Soon Retsu faced his first opponent, former Southeast Asian kickboxing champion A Chang. A Chang's skills were absolutely terrifying. On average, he could knock out opponents in just 2.5 minutes. After finishing the press interviews, A Chang quickly got into his training routine, but suddenly he stopped in his tracks. The sight before him left him shocked. There was actually a completely destroyed punching bag nearby. When he learned from the gym owner that someone had blown up the bag with just one right straight punch, A Chang was even more amazed, and he really wanted to meet this person. The coach pointed to the guy training in front of the mirror. A Chang was blown away. Those powerful arms made him want to test himself against them. So he had the gym owner relay this to Retsu. But when Retsu saw his opponent was just some skinny guy, he took back his earlier agreement to fight, because A Chang's strength wasn't on the same level as his. In a fight like this, Retsu couldn't even use his full power. Feeling disrespected, A Chang immediately put on his gloves and said Retsu could use punches or kicks, whatever he wanted. Even using the 18 dragon subduing poems would be fine. Hearing this, Retsu leaped onto the ring, saying his opponent wasn't worthy of witnessing his leg techniques, and warned A Chang that fighting him could be life-threatening. But A Chang remained absolutely determined. Seeing this, Retsu had no choice but to put on gloves to avoid accidentally killing his opponent with one punch. Boxing is just one type of martial art. Today Retsu decided to show them what real boxing looks like.
Begin!
With just one strike, the former world heavyweight champion was knocked to the ground, completely unconscious. After the fight ended, Retsu went back to practicing his stance training against the wall. Seeing this, the coach scolded Retsu. What kind of training is that? Didn't you come here to learn boxing? Then you should be doing proper boxing training. Jump rope, hit the heavy bag, speed bag. These are proper boxing exercises. But Retsu replied, if those are proper boxing training methods, then why did the former heavyweight world champion get knocked out by me? The coach was instantly left speechless. Then Retsu added, if the coach could find a boxer to defeat him, forget jump rope and shadow boxing. He'd even do handstand dancing if they wanted. He totally stole the show. Its wounds could turn into endless jewels. Its nails could heal the dying and the injured. Even a single drop of its saliva could restore someone's youth. This 1,000-year-old turtle that cultivated in the Tongtian River wanted to test human nature, so it made a wager with a monk. The bet was not about magical powers, but about the human heart. One day, the old turtle surfaced on its own. No resistance, no struggle, allowing the fishing net to fall over it. The giant creature quickly alarmed the entire fishing village. People held up torches, terrified and wanting to burn the monster to death. They believed such a thing should not exist in this world. But at that moment, the old turtle lifted a claw and gently scratched itself. Something fell from the wound. In an instant, glistening pearls rolled onto the ground. The surroundings fell silent. The monster in their eyes vanished. What remained was a god. The old turtle shed a piece of its nail. The severely injured child miraculously opened his eyes. Then it let a drop of saliva fall, and a white-haired elder straightened his back instantly. At that moment, the wind and rain were calmed. The river was tamed. With a lift of its hands, it could summon wind and rain. The once terrifying tornado turned into long-awaited gentle rain. Going out to sea was no longer seen as gambling with one's life. To please the giant turtle and secure endless wealth, the villagers built a temple for it, even replacing all Buddha statues with its likeness. The miracles gradually spread. Monks from all over came to worship. More and more people bowed before it. The incense offerings grew stronger. The once ugly giant turtle had become a true Buddha in their eyes. But what people prayed for quietly changed. No longer for survival, no longer for safety, but for more, to help the people. The giant turtle regularly cut open its wounds to release jewels, which were distributed by officials and monks. The jewels rolled out and were neatly collected. The order seemed perfect. Everyone benefited from it. People began to believe, as long as the god remained, everything would continue. But human greed knows no bounds, and is never satisfied. One day, a man in the crowd stared fixedly at the treasure flowing from the turtle's wound, his eyes slowly consumed by greed. At that moment, something moved within him before faith ever could. He suddenly shoved through the crowd, pulled out a blade, and slashed wildly at the turtle's abdomen. The next second, jewels scattered everywhere. The giant turtle, in agony, struck the man away with its palm. But the man ignored the pain and threw himself to the ground, desperately scooping treasure into his arms. At first it was only a bit of chaos, then everything spiraled out of control. The officers stepped forward to maintain order, but the golden jewels covering the ground had already ignited greed in everyone's eyes. Warnings became useless. Status lost all meaning. If one person rushed forward, others would follow. The crowd surged forward, competing to slash at the giant turtle. Eventually even the officers joined the looting. Soon the prosperity vanished, leaving only dead silence. Only an empty turtle shell remained on the river. Is the god dead? No one answered. No one knew how much time passed. When a monk holding a toad passed by, and the giant turtle that should have been dead suddenly spoke.